We'll have to remove this window switch. In order to do that, you'll need to take the door panel off by sticking a flathead screwdriver around the edge and popping the clips loose. And then right here, wedge a screwdriver down into this edge, pop this loose. You have some clips here and one plug to disconnect this little bitty treble speaker. Take your screws out of your door latch and down inside of your door handle. Pull this and it will release this cover. Then you'll lift this door panel up by the handle and out of the lip. There's only two connectors on this. Both connectors go into your window switch cluster. With the panel off, you're going to notice you've got some screws here that hold this housing on. Those screws will have to be removed because you can't get to all of these screws. There's some that are underneath the edge of this. So it's a boatload of screws to take out. All these screws around this whole panel right here. But that's what it takes to get to just the window switch itself. Then you've got 3 more screws that hold this piece onto the door bezel. With the switch cluster out, we'll have to take all these screws off the back to get access to the contacts on the inside. And there were 7 screws that had to be taken out to get the cluster out of here. Looks like the part number on this is 935702L010. With this loose, you've got some little tabs here. You can see all across this that you'll need multiple little flathead screwdrivers to stick down in each one of these and pry it apart. Okay, with the bottom pried off, you're going to notice that this thing flows pretty freely up and down, except for this window switch lock. This thing will actually have to be popped off of there. Just yank on it really hard. It was really stiff, but it won't come apart unless you have that button popped off of there. So I removed this back door panel and took the switch out, which is actually pretty easy. It's 3 screws. It mounts into this little area. So I was thinking, okay, the contacts are probably bad on this because the switch would only work going down. It would not work coming back up. So just so you can see this thing, it's got a little lock tab there. Of course, I've already taken it, popped this one loose with a little flathead screwdriver. Same on the other side. Well, anyways, once you get this apart, it does you really no good because, as you can see, it's got an up and a down. But inside here, the contacts are actually down deeper. There's little white tabs down in there. Those are actually the little switches. So what we'll actually have to do is pull this 2-piece housing apart by putting little flatheads in those grooves right there and disassemble that to see what these contacts look like. Okay, so I was actually able to pry this apart by putting the flathead screwdriver here and here, and then another one underneath the bottom, as you can see, and was able to get those tabs popped up out of that groove, which was very tedious. I mean, you're probably going to break it, but since the switch is already broke, you're not out much if you do. But it's worth a try to get it apart. If I could get that screwdriver to stay. Now we've got this out. Let's see what this looks like. It looks to me like those contacts are still down inside of... Oh my goodness, you gotta take this part again. Yeah, it looks like we got 2 more tabs here before we can get to those little white contacts. The buttons down deep inside here. So we'll pull this apart a little bit further. I really need to get a tripod or something to do this. Trying to do this with one hand. A little bit aggravating, but whatever. At least it gives you guys the idea of what this looks like inside. Maybe we'll see some burnt contacts in here. See if I can get this in some better light. I'm doing this in the garage at like 4 a.m. so you'll just have to bear with me. So you can actually take these off. They're just kind of like a little spring-loaded clip there, and you can see the contact. How it's got all kinds of corrosion built up on it. You just file that off. Take some sandpaper and file it off. And do the same on the body. File that little contact off, which is right there for people who are not familiar with this. But that little dab right there is actually what makes the contact like in a relay, and it gets corrosion built up. So here's like a before and after. I just flipped those contacts around. But the side on the left is where I've cleaned it up and filed it off. The side on the right is with corrosion built up. And it doesn't take very long. Just a quick little sanding or filing. You could even use a razor blade and just scrape across there. But that's what you want it to look like, the side that's on the left. And then there's those little white pieces of plastic. Those are actually the buttons that fit down inside those grooves there that make contact. Now before I put this thing back together, I'm going to actually give this thing a test in the car and we'll see how it works. Looks like we're working.